What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Let's dive right into our first news. Colby Covington is once again taking aim at Bo Nickal, and this time he did not hold back at all. Nickal recently withdrew from a scheduled wrestling match against Yoel Romero after Romero came in 7 pounds overweight. That decision immediately sparked backlash across the MMA community, with many fans and fighters criticizing Nickal for refusing to compete. Covington quickly jumped into the conversation and unloaded on Nickal during a recent interview with Submission Radio. Covington labeled Nickal a coward and a quitter, saying there was no excuse for backing out of a match against a man who is nearly 50 years old. He mocked the weight miss, arguing that a few extra pounds should not matter, especially when the opponent is 17 years older. In Covington's view, Nickal should have been eager to compete, not just for his own reputation, but for the real American freestyle brand that he claims to represent. Covington went further, accusing Nickal of talking about being a company man while repeatedly failing to show up when it matters. He pointed out that this was the second time Nickal pulled out of wrestling Yoel Romero on the Real American Freestyle platform. To Covington, that pattern is embarrassing and only reinforces the idea that Nickal folds when things do not go perfectly. The rant did not stop there. Covington brought up Nickal's first real moment of adversity in MMA, referencing his loss to RDR. Covington sarcastically apologized for previously calling RDR a Dutch kickboxer, admitting he later learned RDR is actually a Dutch grappler. He then claimed that this so-called Dutch grappler exposed Nickal, saying Nickal quit once the fight became difficult in the striking exchanges. Covington repeatedly referred to Nickal as a clown, dismissing him as completely irrelevant. He said Nickal could not draw money even if he were given a green crayon and a blank piece of paper. According to Covington, nobody cares about Nickal. Nobody is tuning in for him, and his name carries no weight in the fight business. As always, Covington's comments were loud, personal, and designed to grab attention. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to support the channel. Moving on to another news, the disdain between Bo Nickal and Colby Covington is very real, and Nickal is making it clear that he wants to put an end to Covington's career. Nickal recently appeared on the Ariel Helwani show, where he went off on the former interim UFC champion, demanding a fight and promising to tear him apart inside the octagon. Nickal said he wants the fight to happen in the UFC as soon as June, claiming he would absolutely dominate Covington and send him packing for good. According to Nickal, Covington would never agree to wrestle him, but when it comes to an actual UFC fight, he believes the promotion is not particularly happy with Covington right now. Because of that, Nickal thinks there is a real chance the UFC could force the matchup to happen. He said he plans to personally push for the fight and make sure the right people hear his message. Nickal did not stop there. He repeatedly labeled Covington a fake and a fraud, accusing him of being a phony who only plays a character to antagonize others. Nickal claimed Covington's public persona is not based on genuine beliefs, but rather on trying to stay relevant by stirring controversy. He dismissed Covington as a nobody, saying he could not cut it in wrestling, and was simply fortunate to enter MMA at a time when many fighters lacked high-level wrestling skills. Nickal also took aim at Covington's recent record, pointing out that he has not won anything meaningful in years. In Nickal's view, Covington has been living off past hype, and once they fight, it would not even make it out of the first round. Nickal said he would love nothing more than to end Covington's career and prove once and for all that he does not belong at the top level. During the interview, Nickal also addressed the backlash surrounding his withdrawal from the wrestling match against Yoel Romero. He explained that many of the people criticizing him have never competed at a high level and do not understand the situation. Nickal said that most of his peers in wrestling were actually shocked that he even considered taking the match once the weight issue became clear. Nickal revealed that he initially expected Romero to miss weight by 2 or 3 pounds, which he would have accepted without hesitation. However, when Romero stepped on the scale at 212 pounds, 7 pounds over the limit, it changed everything. Nickal admitted it took him a couple of hours to process the situation, but once he spoke with his coaches and team, they collectively agreed it was best to move on. Nickal emphasized that he always wants to compete, but in that moment, the weight difference created a tough and unreasonable situation. After careful consideration, he chose to walk away, standing by the decision despite the criticism. Moving on to another news, Sean O'Malley has given major praise to Petr Yan after his incredible performance at UFC 323, calling it one of the sickest displays he has ever watched. Unlike some former champions who downplayed the result, Sean made it clear that Yan's win completely blew him away and earned his full respect. At UFC 23, Petr Yan shocked a lot of people by reclaiming the bantamweight title in a rematch against Merab. After getting dominated in their first meeting, Yan entered the fight as a clear underdog. Instead, he delivered a relentless 5-round performance, outworking Merab for the full 25 minutes and flipping the script in dramatic fashion. It quickly became one of the standout performances of the entire year. Sean, who has lost twice to Merab himself, admitted he was especially impressed by how Yan handled the fight. Speaking on a podcast, Sean said Petr has always been one of his favorite fighters to watch, praising his skill set, toughness, and intensity. He described Yan as a scary, mean, and incredibly technical fighter, someone who always brings a high level of violence and precision into the cage. After rewatching the fight, Sean broke down what stood out to him the most. He highlighted Yan's defensive wrestling, noting that Merab only managed to officially secure 2 takedowns out of more than 20 attempts. According to Sean, Yan's ability to stuff takedowns, counter with elbows, and even slam Merab on his head showed just how complete his game has become. For Sean, it was not just a win, but a beautiful and masterful performance. Sean's history with both men adds another layer to the story. He lost the bantamweight title to Merab in 2024 and then dropped the rematch last year. He also fought Petr Yan at UFC 280 in 2022, winning a controversial split decision that launched him into title contention. Now, with unfinished business still hanging in the air, Sean believes the timing is perfect for a rematch. Sean is scheduled to face Song Yadong at UFC 324, and if he gets past that challenge, he believes a rematch with Petr Yan at the UFC White House card makes the most sense. In his view, while Merab may deserve another title shot on merit, the biggest and most exciting fight possible is Sean versus Petr, running it back on one of the most historic cards the UFC has ever planned. Moving on to another news, Kamaru Usman believes the brutal injury Alexandre Pantoja suffered was not just bad luck, but a mistake of his own making. Usman has come out in agreement with flyweight contender Manel Kape, who openly criticized the sequence that ended Pantoja's title reign in shocking fashion. The flyweight division is moving at warp speed right now, and Pantoja's sudden exit from the throne only accelerated the chaos. Just over a month after losing his UFC title at UFC 323, Pantoja is already back in the gym. The loss itself was stunning. Only 26 seconds into the fight against Joshua Van, Pantoja suffered a nasty elbow injury that instantly ended the contest and cost him the belt. Since then, the former champion has been posting footage of himself doing light conditioning work and selective sparring, clearly eager to prove he is still in the mix. According to reports, no surgery was required. The tendons were affected, but the ligaments remained intact. Pantoja is now targeting a mid to late 2026 return, fully focused on reclaiming what he believes is still his. However, not everyone is buying the idea that it was just a freak accident. Manel Kape didn't mince words when addressing the situation. He labeled it a clear technical error, explaining that when a fighter falls, they are supposed to roll, not post their arm to brace the impact. That is basic jiu-jitsu, and extending the arm in that position is asking for serious damage. In Kape's view, that single mistake cost Pantoja both the fight and the title. Kamaru Usman fully backed that assessment. In a recent clip, the former welterweight champion agreed that it was an error on Pantoja's part, even if it happened in a split second. Usman broke down the moment in detail, pointing out that after Pantoja threw the kick and Joshua Van lifted the leg, posting the arm was the wrong reaction. Fighters know you do not post when falling, you roll. According to Usman, that one technical lapse was enough to end a championship reign. Usman also highlighted something even more brutal than the injury itself, how fast the sport moved on. He acknowledged Pantoja's desire to return immediately, explaining that when someone has built their entire identity around being the defending champion, losing that status hits hard. Pantoja wanted to get back right away because being champion had become who he was. But as Usman pointed out, the division didn't wait. Fans and media instantly shifted focus to names like Manel Kape, Joshua Van, and Tatsuro Taira. Suddenly, hardly anyone was even talking about how the champion lost the title. That, according to Usman, is just how unforgiving this sport can be. Moving on to another news, Colby Covington did not limit himself to criticizing Bo Nickal, as he also used the interview to reveal his future plans and fire shots across multiple divisions. Covington confirmed that he is seriously considering a move up to middleweight and immediately named some high-profile targets that he believes make sense for him both competitively and commercially. One name that stood out was Israel Adesanya. Covington said that Adesanya is a former champion just like himself, someone who generates hype, has a massive following, and carries real star power. In Covington's eyes, that matchup makes far more sense than most other options on the table. He also added a personal edge, pointing out that he does not particularly like Adesanya and claiming that Adesanya has talked about him in the past. Covington said he would like the opportunity to see if Adesanya can actually back up all that talk inside the cage. Covington also mentioned Sean Strickland as another potential opponent at middleweight, suggesting that he is open to big-name fights as he looks to reinvent himself in a new division. The message was clear. If he is moving up, he wants fights that matter, fights that draw attention, and fights that put him right back into the spotlight. He was not finished there. Covington then turned his attention to Khamzat, calling him out directly and questioning his willingness to engage in a striking battle. Covington reminded everyone that the two were previously linked to a fight at welterweight and said it is a matchup he has always liked. According to Covington, Khamzat would not be able to take him down and control him the way he has done to others. Covington explained that his collegiate wrestling background would allow him to fight the hands, look for underhooks, and immediately work his way back to his feet. He claimed that Khamzat would not be able to hold him down like he did in his last fight against Duplessis, insisting it would be a completely different scenario. Covington said that once the fight stays standing, it becomes a striking contest, and that is where he believes Khamzat is uncomfortable. He went as far as saying that Khamzat does not like getting hit in the face and prefers to avoid extended exchanges on the feet. Covington made it clear that he loves that fight and believes it favors him stylistically. To close things out, the tension with Bo Nickal was briefly revisited. Nickal's disdain for Covington is very real, and he has made it known that he wants to dispose of the former interim champion, labeling Covington a fraud. With all these callouts flying, Covington has once again positioned himself right in the middle of the UFC spotlight. Moving on to another news, UFC veteran Matt Brown has shared serious concerns about Ilia and how his ongoing personal issues could impact his future inside the cage. Ilia has been one of the most dominant and talked about fighters in recent years, tearing through legendary names like Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway at featherweight before moving up to lightweight and doing the same to Charles Oliveira. Becoming a two-division champion is no longer unheard of, but Ilia's destructive style and rising global popularity quickly turned him into one of the UFC's biggest stars. However, as the 2026 UFC calendar begins to unfold, Ilia remains absent with no clear timeline for his return. While Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett are preparing to clash for an interim lightweight title, Ilia is dealing with a messy and very public divorce, including an ongoing custody battle. That situation has raised red flags for Brown, who knows firsthand how damaging personal turmoil can be for a fighter. Brown nearly retired during his own divorce, and that experience shapes his concern about how Ilia might perform when he eventually returns. Brown suggested that Ilia could come back too soon, still carrying emotional baggage, and that it might cost him inside the octagon. Fighters hate sitting on the sidelines, and even when life outside the cage is chaotic, the urge to compete can become overwhelming. Brown explained that watching UFC events while injured or inactive is mentally exhausting. You want to be the one in there, the one everyone is watching. In his view, Ilia is healthy and physically capable of fighting, but he is also dealing with heavy personal stress. That combination can lead fighters to rush back before they are truly ready, and when that happens, the results are rarely positive. As UFC 324 approaches, Dana White has said the expectation is that the interim lightweight champion will eventually face Ilia. Still, nothing has been made official, and the uncertainty surrounding Ilia's personal life only adds more questions to the situation. Brown emphasized that fighters are human, and outside issues often bleed into performances, whether fans realize it or not. According to Brown, divorces, custody battles, family problems, and emotional stress can quietly affect sleep, recovery, and training quality. Even small increases in stress hormones can add up over time, leading to slower recovery and reduced performance. Fighters may not notice it day to day, but eventually, something feels off. Brown does believe Ilia is smart and talented enough to overcome this difficult chapter and continue ruling the lightweight division. Still, there are no guarantees. That is why Brown hopes Ilia takes the time he truly needs before booking his return. Ilia is good enough to beat Gaethje or Paddy, but if his head is not right and his preparation is compromised, anything can happen in a sport as unforgiving as MMA. Moving on to another news. Alexander Volkanovski has directly responded to growing rumors suggesting that his upcoming fight against Diego Lopes could be the final bout of his legendary career. In recent weeks, speculation began circulating that the matchup was being viewed as a potential retirement fight, something Volkanovski says completely caught him off guard. Speaking candidly, Volkanovski made it clear that he has no idea where the retirement narrative even came from. He explained that people may be reading too much into comments he has made in the past about evaluating his future fight by fight. According to Volkanovski, those statements were never meant to signal that he was on the verge of walking away, but rather that he is realistic about the physical toll of the sport. Volkanovski said that if something were to go horrendously wrong, such as taking extreme damage, then of course he would reassess his future. However, that is not his plan or his expectation. As of now, he is fully focused on performing at a high level, getting his hand raised, and continuing his career without hesitation. He went on to explain that his ideal scenario is to come out of the Diego Lopes fight with minimal damage so he can make a quick turnaround and stay active. Volkanovski emphasized that he still enjoys the grind, the training, and the competition. In his mind, there are still plenty of exciting challenges left, including the possibility of facing an undefeated fighter in the UFC, which he admitted is very appealing to him. While Volkanovski acknowledged that there were some conversations after his last fight about how many bouts he has left, those thoughts quickly disappeared once he got back into training camp. He said the moment he started preparing again, his mindset completely shifted back into fight mode. The hunger was still there, and the motivation returned immediately. Volkanovski made it clear that the plan is not to retire after this fight. He feels good, he feels motivated, and he believes everything is lining up for him to continue competing at the highest level. He stressed that as long as his performances remain strong and his body holds up, there is no reason to step away. In closing, Volkanovski brushed off the rumors as unnecessary noise. From his perspective, this fight is not about endings, but about continuing the journey. He is planning on winning, staying healthy, and pushing forward, proving once again that he is far from done with the sport he still loves. That's it from MMA Pulse News. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for your daily dose of MMA news.